Good evening. My name is Heidi Trail. I am the vice chair of the select board, and we are opening this meeting, the Town of Needham Tree Preservation Planning Committee, which has been a long time in the making. So very pleased to have you all here. I want to say we are, this is a hybrid meeting, so there may be folks online. This is a public meeting, but not an open meeting for comment from the public. We are going to be recording this meeting and it'll be available on the town YouTube channel following the meeting, at some point following the meeting. We are recording this meeting, but if anyone else would like to record this meeting, I need you to inform me, please. Anyone in the room recording the meeting? Okay. Fantastic. So I'd love to start. First of all, welcome everybody. This is so exciting to get this thing off the ground. I'd love to start just going around the table and doing some introductions. Maybe if you could just say for the record kind of what your slot is, what your role is here. I am the member of the select board, and again, my name is Heidi Frail.
Hi, everyone. Katie King. I'm the deputy town manager, and I will be staffing this committee for all of you.
Artie Crocker, I'm the vice chair of the planning board. I'm also on the climate action committee. I used to be on the conservation commission, where Fred is now.
Fred Motor, Conservation Commission, also Climate Action Committee.
Andrew Babinski, I'm one of the residents at large.
Kurt Petrini, I'm the local developer.
Erica Hitchings, resident at large.
Erica Bond, landscape architect, master gardener.
Nick Tatar, and I'm a local contractor and builder.
Excellent. Well, really pleased to have you here. And there are some additional members. Online, we have Eddie Olson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Edward Olson, Superintendent of Parks and Forestry and the town's tree warden.
Thanks for joining us. And there's no one else of this group online, right? No,
Correct.
panelists is just us. Okay, and then, so we do have a couple of members who couldn't join us tonight. Josh Levy, who's a member of the select board, but here as a member of the stormwater working group. He, I think will be coming and joining us later. Clary Cotu is a member of the Conservation Commission. And Oscar Mertz is a member of the Large House Review Study Committee. So, all right. So thank you for taking this on. Do we need to, let's see, review our charge? Or,
Anyone need a packet?
This is what you emailed out?
yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna go through it. I think it's important to help us focus on what we're here to do. The Tree Preservation Planning Committee will review options for preserving the town's tree canopy, both public and private, and make recommendations for action to the select board. So we will host public listening sessions early in the committee's work to solicit thoughts, ideas from the public. Review the town manager's working draft goals for tree preservation and recommend changes if we feel they're appropriate. Review tree preservation strategies in similar communities, gather feedback from stakeholders, and that's kind of everyone, right? Because everyone lives around trees. Investigate funding sources for tree preservation, including grants, fees, and community preservation funding. Evaluate and recommend changes to rules, regulations, policies, and bylaws. Investigate available data on the existence and removal of public and private trees. Develop metrics for tracking tree preservation progress. Develop strategies for raising community awareness about the importance of trees. And identify and report to the select board priority tree preservation strategies that could be staged. So we're not going to wait until the very end to deliver sort of all of our recommendations. We're going to, if there are ones that are available to implement as we go, we're going to do that. And we're going to develop and present a report to the select board on tree preservation strategies for private and public trees. So there's a lot to do here. It's not going to be easy, and there's going to be a ton of opinions. So, it's going to be kind of an intense period, but we have actually the captain of our ship is Katie, and she is super fabulous. And so I think the first thing that we're going to do is take a look at what has already been done and what we can build on.
Great, I'm happy to do that. I don't know if you want to go your chair by chair or just flip the order
Hmm,
on the agenda.
yeah, we should do that. Committee works best when somebody leads it. Does anyone want to lead this one? Okay, well, I would volunteer to be chair. If folks feel like that's appropriate, unless anyone else would like to volunteer.
I'm gonna be away for about 3 weeks during the spring, and so,
Okay.
yeah, probably not.
All right, well, thank you though,
Yeah,
for being
yeah.
considerate in that. Is anyone interested in being the vice chair?
I'll be vice chair if no one wants to. Oh, you want to be vice chair?
I'm happy to be vice
Oh, you can be
chair.
vice chair. Please do. Please
I know you're busy.
Please take it. Please,
Yeah, since you're on like
please,
14 committees.
please take it, please.
All right, fabulous. So we have two people who are interested in being chair and vice chair, but somebody needs to make a motion to elect these two people.
I move that we elect formally the 2 volunteers here.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, super. So because Ed is not a voting member, is he?
No, neither am I.
Okay, so by show of hands, let's have a vote on the motion to elect the volunteers. All right, excellent.
Oh, no, not really.
I'll subtract you from the count.
All right, fantastic. So that item is knocked off of the agenda.
Perfect. So the next agenda item is, we thought it might be helpful to just share kind of where the town has been on trees. So I included in your packet some memos that we had created primarily for the select board over the last few years. I won't read them, but I'll just kind of give the highlights, particularly for folks maybe who are online. But what I would say is there has been a sustained issue in talking about trees and how to preserve trees in this town for a long time. But our strategies around how we want to get there have been a lot less clear. And, you know, I've been here for the last 5 years, and I think our efforts are kind of have been in fits and starts and largely due to competing priorities, which is kind of why you'll see that there was some work done and then maybe not advanced along the way. So from a high level, in 2016 and 2017, the town put together a working group. Ed Olson was on there. There was select board members, planning board members, conservation, building commissioner. And the work of that group was really around, they drafted basically a bylaw that modeled what the town of Wellesley has, where it was primarily focused on preserving private trees on lots that were about to undertake construction, and kind of outlining what trees had to be preserved. And if you were to take down a protected tree, what would be required of that property owner in terms of mitigation? So either a replacement of new trees or payment into a fund. And that group really dug in, got to a point where they really drafted a bylaw, but they hit a crossroad, which really was, there was no additional resources to implement the bylaw in terms of the Parks and Forestry staff, the building department staff. And there was a question about if we're gonna set up this administrative process that was cumbersome, I think, perception on the staff and the property owner side. Did we feel like it was going to be effective? The sense was that a lot of people would opt for mitigation as opposed to actually protecting the existing trees. And so then if the outcome was that you were lost the trees, but added more money maybe into a tree fund, if that was the end goal, was that satisfying the town's goals? And two, if that was the outcome, was there a less burdensome way to get there? If the goal was just getting more money in terms of the town's ability to plant trees. So that group kind of came to that crossroads, and the bylaw didn't advance. And so from that time, in 2021, both the select board and planning board asked us to kind of regroup on the issue, and welcome.
This is Josh Levy, everyone. Oh, he's the select board member who's also here as the stormwater working group member.
We're just going over kind of where the town has been on trees. So in 2021, there was interest again, and there really wasn't cohesion around what our next step would be as a town. Do we reconstitute a working group? Do we kind of have staff dig into some work? So it kind of, again, ended up being put kind of behind some other competing priorities. In 2023, there was discussion about maybe we have like a big forum and we just talk about trees. And we were about to invite people and about to have this forum, and then there was a moment of like, what is the outcome or the goal? And we're gonna hear a lot about trees, and then what? And there was really no like scaffolding around it. So we went back to the drawing board and this summer set up a working group under the town manager. It was a lot of staff from many departments that touch trees in town. There was Artie and Heidi both served on it, and a member from the Conservation Commission. And we just got in a room and said, why have we kind of been going in fits and starts, and how can we set ourselves up for success this time? And I think what primarily came out of that was, one, we did need to create a tree committee, so thank you. But two, we had to start with like, what is the goal we're trying to achieve? We were often diving right into the strategy. Let's have a listening session. Let's have a bylaw. And it's like, okay, stop. What do we want to kind of zoom out and say for this group to start with? And so in the memo that I think we can dig into next, it was, you know, really around, let's give ourselves a starting point to really grapple with what are the town's goals around trees, public, private? What are some guiding principles that we want to make sure we kind of are keeping in mind? And then what are the strategies and ways to measure progress that get at those goals? So that's kind of the framework and 10 years of history kind of summarized. But there's a lot in front of us, as Heidi mentioned. And, you know, I think this is a top priority. And so I think we are set up for success now to really move the ball forward.
Not only that, I'm not willing to be part of the third committee that doesn't do anything. Not that they didn't do anything, that doesn't reach the goal. So we're doing this.
Whatever it is.
Hell or high water. We're gonna make something happen here. Okay. So,
Is it okay to ask a question?
yeah,
Was there any interviews with the Wellesley's committee or other towns to find out how effective their tree ordinance has been?
Yes, I will turn to Ed, but I'd say we didn't do recent digging into stuff before the launch of this committee, but that was part of the conversation. So Ed, I don't know if you wanna, Ed was part of that committee and.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, and that's a great question. I hope you all can hear me fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, and to Heidi's point, yeah, a ton of work went in. I mean, hundreds of hours went into that committee, but we didn't come up with a resolution because there were so many unanswered questions. I think, like Katie said, that's a great synopsis of where we were and what we did. And yes, as part of that process, we interviewed all 7 communities in Massachusetts that do have tree bylaws. There's not a lot of communities that have tree bylaws. A lot of communities talk about tree bylaws, but in Massachusetts, there's only a handful: Lexington, Newton, Wellesley, and a couple others. So there's not a ton of these out there. But we tried to model, like Katie said, our bylaw on really Wellesley's and Lexington's as comparable communities. And I think we heard from all, and some communities are having success. I think Lexington said that their bylaw was kind of a fiasco, and Wellesley said theirs is going well. And I think the end goal of Wellesley is, I think what we kind of will see in Needham, that, and forgive me, Kurt, you're the builder in the room, but builders will take the trees down. There's a real estate investment here to be made, and they will pay into funds. And that's what Wellesley's seen. These lots still get built, the trees still come down, but the town benefits. And like Katie said, instead of this whole process, and then the city gets the funds and then has to spend all this in this administrative costs to let staff this, go through plans, is there a better way to cut the middleman out and try to come up with an end goal? If we're preserving trees as an end goal, well, the tree bylaw necessarily doesn't accomplish that, because you can pay to play. You can take down trees, the cost of the house is raised, and the consumer just pays. So we outclass maybe Wellesley with the most expensive homes in Massachusetts next. But those are the complications that we got to think about. And like Katie said, and Heidi said, we need to frame what the goals are. And I think that's where we need to restart and really think and put our heads together. What is the goal and how do we get there? And really think creatively as opposed to maybe the old school way of penalizing people for taking trees down. And I think I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to share with people in upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I talked to most of you during your interviews, and I think one of the things that we talked about was that this is gonna be lots of different strategies. We're not gonna try and force it all into a bylaw. If it turns out that that's the right thing to do, then we can pursue that. But in the meantime, we're gonna keep open minds. We're gonna let this be nuanced. It would be great if we didn't focus only on penalizing for taking down trees, but maybe we can find some incentives that will encourage the preservation of at least some of them. So we just wanna really look at all the solutions, and I think, to your point, Fred, looking at what is working and what is not working in similar communities is definitely a step that we'd like to take, and work that will be done by this committee, I would imagine.
We do have some interns doing some initial research, but when we have that work product, we'll see, you know, did we want to dig in a little bit more somewhere, and so that'll be at upcoming meetings.
Well, one of the big things that's been talked about around town is that a house is bought, house is leveled, and the whole lot is leveled. And a lot of people, and that really is problematic for a lot of people in town. It's problematic in the environment, problematic in flooding. So I'm certainly interested in finding a way of not just saying, here, pay some money and take the trees down. Is that doesn't cut, for me, that doesn't personally cut it. Doesn't mean you can't take some trees down, but just simply leveling a lot leaves a lot to be desired as far as the environment, the local community, and the flooding. And so I'd like to find a way, so like you said, incentivize, well, I mean, sometimes the incentive is you're not allowed to cut down every single tree in the lot. That's the incentive sometimes.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as far as paying to cut a tree down that goes into a tree fund, I mean, from an environmental standpoint, it would take an awful lot of trees to be planted to replace one 2-foot diameter, 80-foot high tree.
Sure.
You almost can't plant enough.
Sure, well, and I think, you know, the reason that this committee has different viewpoints, but also, Josh is here as part of the Stormwater Committee, Artie's here as part of the Large House Review Committee. I mean, all of these things kind of dovetail, and so as we talk about moving forward here, we want to make sure that our strategies and our plans make sense in the context of other things that are going on around town. And I do want to say, Kurt is not the only developer. Well, you are a builder, right? So I would just like to say that I want to try really hard to not be sort of derogatory towards our builders. I think we need to recognize that builders perform an essential function in our town, and we may not like the way that businesses are run all the time, but it's an important function. We wouldn't have houses without them. So it's important to find ways to work together, and that's why we're here. That's why Kurt agreed to join. And so I just want to throw that out, because I think we have a tendency to sort of, you know, jump to conclusions. And it's not going to be as productive if we're not sort of as open-minded as we all can be. So, did you have something to say, Fred? You look like you were.
No, I was just agreeing with that and hoping that Kurt's gonna inform us how a developer thinks.
Yeah,
So we
yes.
can, so
I
we
agree.
can understand it.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be here if he wasn't, you know, in the club, like looking to work together. So especially, I appreciate all of you, but I think that, you know, sometimes these communities that seat can be a little hot. So I just want to say I recognize that. All right, so I don't have our agenda.
Oh,
Sorry.
Can I ask-
Problem with the scrolling business.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So I just wanna, my understanding is, you know, with all this history, the reason why this committee exists is because people feel like too many trees are being cut down. And maybe more specifically, people don't know why they're being cut down.
Mhm.
So I think those are key questions to address.
Yeah, education is definitely gonna be, education and communication, I think, is really gonna be
I
important.
think
Erica.
that really hits it, right? Because I know enough to know that I'm probably missing some points as to like what the practical things are, but I also know that I've, for a lot, like some lots may need to be cleared more than others, but I also know that I've talked just in some conversations with people who do have more knowledge, whether it's landscape or have you, and sometimes when they're involved in a project, it doesn't mean no trees get cut down on that property, but some trees are clearly preserved, and they can be, because there's kind of forethought, and I don't know all the economics, but I know that I need to understand that, so I think that's a really important question. Obviously, Kurt, you can help us get that, but I'm sure there's different ways to
And I
look at
think-
that.
Sorry, and I think the perfect example of what you're talking about is what happened with the town common. Like, people were so up in arms and had no idea that there were diseased trees there, there were invasive trees
Right.
there was a bigger plan that, they just. So it's so much easier just to say
Out there.
negative things and how wrong everything is than it is to really understand the whys and the reasonings for.
To that point, I will say the same thing is about to happen at the high school. There's a bunch of trees that have to come down for various reasons, but mostly because they're dying or diseased. And learning from the town common, the town has put out a press release prior to this action enumerating the reasons why the trees have to come down. Now, whether people will see it.
Yeah.
And whether they will absorb it, I mean, we can only do what we can do, but I think you're right. I mean, it's not only understanding the education, but also communicating that to the public. And I do want to say that I think, it would be, I would hope that we could start this committee with a good deal of education, because I think, we all have different strengths. I know next to nothing about trees personally, so I could use the education. And I think then, once we get sort of some understanding of trees generally, we need to start looking into what is the viewpoint of the Conservation Commission? How do developers work, and what is the process, and what room is there in the process, et cetera. So I think we're gonna need to look at all of these things. At our next meeting, if the dates work out, we're gonna have a presentation from the Charles River Watershed to sort of level set us with some education about trees and their various qualities and sustainability features in the environment. So that we can start from that basic common understanding. I know we want to spend some time listening to the public, and we'll have to plan that, but I also I feel really strongly that we should try to convene a forum of developers, because as much as Kurt is here to give us input, you are one developer, you are one builder, and it would be helpful to hear from a group with varied experiences and so on. So I think any other educational experiences that you all can bring in or have suggestions of would be really helpful. I mean, we have Eddie, our town staff is great. We have the sustainability manager, who I'm sure will chime in if appropriate, and our DPW manager. But I'd love us to sort of start from common ground, and I think that's a good way to get going. And if anyone has any suggestions, I would love to hear them.
Well, I'm glad that we're gonna have the Charles River Watershed. I mean, it's one thing that was, before you said that, one thing I was gonna say was one of the things that's missing. We're talking about the reasons why we have to take down trees. We really need to talk about the reasons why we don't want to take down trees. Preserve as many as possible. Because a lot of the public doesn't understand what trees do for us, what trees do to the environment, how they do it in the environment. The more people that understand the benefit they have or how they create that benefit, it'll be easier to have some type of tree bylaw that has meaning, that.
And not all trees
Changes
are
something.
created equal.
And not
I
all trees-
mean,
yeah,
like
exactly.
an oak, for instance, is far more valuable to the ecosystem than a
Ginkgo.
ginkgo,
Yeah.
exactly, a non-native or You know, but even among native trees, like the oak reigns supreme in terms of supporting wildlife and being a host plant to lots of butterflies and insects that are the base of our ecosystem.
Eddie, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I think we're running some parallel thoughts. I mean, I think we could show people the benefits of trees in so many different ways, heating, cooling. I think we've done that so many different times, but I think we could do a presentation on that. I think a day in the life of a new build construction and do a little clip on the landscaper's point of view, the construction point of view, how the foundation is built, how equipment comes into the site, and actually kind of do a day in the life of what a new home looks like in the process, and finish it off with maybe saying, here are the landscaping touches. We put trees in these strategic spots to cool the house and for aesthetic value, to buffer the sound. These tree choices were picked, and just show a person how to correctly go about from start to finish, and like put a presentation together on what that would look like and why you would choose those steps, and say it's not just clear cut the lot. All these steps go into a new build construction and all need to be considered from all different perspectives. And I think people might have a little bit different idea of what it takes to build a home, and understand that maybe sometimes trees come down, but trees can get planted afterwards, so that the next 100 years, those homes will have a forest. And I think that's the missing pieces. We've seen a lot of homes get built and not a lot of trees get replaced in those new landscapes. And I look at that as an opportunity. I could look at this group to say, let's look back at the last 300 teardowns and write letters to those residents and extol the benefits of trees to them, and fund tree planting efforts for them, so that we can build up the new forest canopy on those homes that will never be torn down in our lifetimes. That is progress. That would be something that would be a big solution here. So I think we need to see that. I think that'd be a cool perspective from all our different expertises here, to give a unique twist on what it looks like to build a home in Needham, and what we'd like to see it ideally look like for the new builders or the new residents. So a blueprint.
Great.
So just to, my background, I'm more of a renovator as opposed to building new homes. So, I'm someone who's going in and pulling out the 100-year-old bathroom and looking at the old pipes and the old lead tub and galvanized pipes from the 80s, just unbelievable stuff, right? And part of the decision-making process about heat the house or bulldoze the house, right? And so I do think that there's a different perspective of renovators who are trying to work with an existing footprint, and preserving enough space for a mature oak tree to actually go in, and a developer who will build within the setback lines. And it's not possible to put an oak tree
Everywhere.
in the spaces where they were before, because the foundations now are within 14 feet. And it's just not enough space to plant a large tree. You can put arborvitae, you can put rhododendron, you can put weeping cherries, right? But you can't put a sugar maple in there, right? It just won't fit.
So, but there are other smaller trees that have equal,
Yeah, so my
benefit.
point is that understanding the nuance of
Yeah.
developing houses where you take enough of the green space out that you can't replace, there isn't the space to put the trees back that were there that were potentially taken down. And I think the other thing is, and I've tried to articulate this before, that those are forever changes. When those big houses go in, they're not coming down in the smaller house going in later, right? That's a change. And, some of what we're seeing down where we live is that it's spread to neighbors. So I've got a neighbor behind me on Whiting that they clear cut that lot, and then the developer offered to take down the trees that were on her lot because he didn't think the trees were going to survive. And he said, I've got my crew here, we're gonna take down ours. If you'd like, we'll take these two down that are close to the trolley line, because they're not gonna survive after we take out the roots, putting in the bottom there. So it's not just on the lots that are getting clear cut now, it's the lots that are abutting those lots as well.
Oh, yeah, and
So I think there's some real
experienced that,
urgency.
so it's like,
There's
we're
some
not quite
urgency
sure
there.
how some of ours will do over time.
Yeah.
And as someone who moved into a renovated house, I'm very grateful on Tree Circle. It's a beautiful oak tree. So, but look, that's my perspective, but it is what brought our family in, like that physical Treehouse, right, actually helped us make the leap to make the offer. And you know, that's one experience, but it's just as much as our friends who moved in and were looking for a house the same week we were, it turned out, and they ended up buying a new one. They had no idea like what had been there before and have actually added a lot of trees since, but that took up their own. You know, they also want to be part of the community and want now the trees and everything else to be there. So it's not necessary, it's a good reminder of like. It's not just which kind of house or which size house or what that you're in currently, because people are coming in for all different reasons at all different times and stages of life, right? And so,
And the last thing I just want to say, from the summer, 2 summers back, when we had all of that rain, I think one of the things that I benefited from was an over reliance on trying to engineer solutions to manage the stormwater in the drains. So I spent a lot of time over on Meadowbrook, which is a low, so got a low water table as it is. That storm drain got backed up because it got clogged in the road. All of the houses in that neighborhood, no matter how much sand and gravel and French drains, and some pumps would back up, some pumps, there was nowhere for that water to go, and it was all, you know, the infrastructure components of it were overwhelmed, and it just took a blockage in one for that whole neighborhood. And again, it kept me very busy, which was great, but the idea that we can engineer our way out of this with, I just throw caution to that, because I do think often those engineered solutions are at their best the day they go in. And after that, you're talking about maintenance to try and keep it as good as it was when it was installed. And whether it's the homeowner or the town, it's a big ask to keep all those systems working as well as they possibly can. So I just, you know, when someone says they can engineer their way out of having to put the trees in, I just say, you know, maybe, but you know, you get enough rain and I'll be the guy you're calling me, you know.
Josh, did you had something to say?
I was gonna say, I really like your point, Nick, about the open space. Like, if there's a new build that doesn't have enough space for a big tree, then there's no way a big tree can go in. And so with coordinating with other committees, I'm wondering if the large house committee had considered open space requirements.
We are
We haven't
looking,
gotten that
we
far.
we are looking at everything right now, and that's in percentage of lot taken up will be one of them.
Yeah.
For
You know, most people here have probably driven past the newish house on Central Avenue adjacent to the driveway to the Newman School. And if you remember, there are two large, fairly mature trees that were preserved throughout that construction. I think that it's possible to preserve some large trees, even with limited space. I mean, trees will grow in rocky ledge, you know, and they'll find a way. But that house that you see there, the builders took a lot of effort to cordon off the root zone from the drip line. And it undoubtedly took them more time and more expense to preserve those trees. So, you know, it's a cost issue, I think. It's not impossible to have.
It's also a space issue. They
Yeah,
had,
it
they had the
probably
space to
depends.
work
They have a
with.
bigger lot.
Right, I had written down here about that lot, and the one thing that has the luxury of, it's a very wide lot, right? And it's a large lot, much larger than an average lot in town probably, right? And so they certainly added cost. The one that I'm thinking of right now that I just saw that just went down, you know, in the last week or so, is the one on the backside of the police station. It's on the corner, like where that Kimball lot is, like off School Street on that corner. And they took down the house, and who knows if the trees are going to survive. But I even did take a photo of it, and, you know, they, on the two opposite corners of the street, did leave they're really on the edge of the property line. Again, who knows if they survive with the root systems and everything else, maybe they're at least gonna give it a try. But though, that's one where it's a quite smaller lot, but they are two mature trees that they did leave there. And, you know, so sort of examples of maybe working within the parameters that you have that isn't always achievable, but trying to do that. In my own personal experience, you know, everybody has their own backgrounds and everything. You know, we moved to town 3.5-ish years ago, and we got a new build, but came in sort of post, not the entire process, but quite far along. The foundation had been set, the lot had been all set and everything else. And to that same point, so most of the trees came down. I never knew what was there
Yeah.
before, other than what's on Google Maps or what neighbors tell you. And, you know, over the last 3.5 years, at no insignificant expense, have planted 10 trees, some of which are pretty mature to buy. And obviously, because I wanted sort of a head start with a maple tree and things like that. But that does take a lot, right? It's not a inconsequential undertaking. Even if you're doing 3 or 4 trees a year, you have to keep up and maintaining them. They're obviously not cheap, especially if you want thing that's not starting at this size. And so you pay for time. But it's a difficult thing to necessarily, especially if the buyer of the home is not necessarily privy to the process, because we were even lucky to get in before it was sort of done, right? Plenty of people who buy a knockdown don't even have that luxury, right? The project is entirely done when it goes to market. And so I think that's something, you know, again, a variable or perspectives of different people's experiences. But it can be done, but you need to be dedicated, and it's not without effort and substantial cost as well. So it's a tricky situation.
And even if they preserve as much as possible of the root system, if they have to drive their equipment over, the area close to the tree, they're compacting that soil to the degree that it's still gonna kill the tree over time.
Right.
So
So in
saving
6
a tree
years, that
doesn't
tree
always
comes
save a
down,
tree.
right, exactly.
Yeah, but that's what Nick was talking about. He
Yeah.
was on the Whiting Way, you're talking about a developer is building a lot and building a tree, cutting that tree, and then he says, well, neighbor, why don't I cut your trees down also, because they may not survive. I don't know if that's, I doubt that would be related to the foundation, certainly could be related to the driving over them. But there are alternatives to driving over where you drive over. For
If
example,
there's space.
if there's space, but I mean, there's space on either side of the house. A lot of times there's space on this side, there's space on that side. Sometimes it's a choice. They're gonna choose where they drive their equipment. If they understand they have to choose the other side, for example, then maybe that'll preserve that tree. For example, because that's a neighbor's tree. That isn't their tree, it's a neighbor's tree. So they're then driving over their equipment over their neighbor's roots, type of thing. And so you were bringing up that as far as them saying, you cut it down.
Katie has something.
I just wanted to say that, when Charles River Watershed comes in and presents, they also have really good data sets. So including Needham, they have all the towns in the watershed, but, they're doing a project for their whole catchment area, but Needham is included in that. So we'll be able to see kind of what is existing for the whole tree canopy, where there's disparities across town, and how it's changed over time. So that'll be kind of part of that foundation setting for all of us too, because I think a lot of the conversation around trees is what you see at the
Right.
streetscape and what's happening in your backyard or your neighborhood. And so we need that and like kind of like overall picture.
Right, we need to know where we're starting, if we're going to make goals for conservation. Eddie, is your hand up new?
Yes, just had 3 quick points. One, to the gentleman, the new resident that planted 10 trees, great job. That's what we want. We want to, oh, really, we want to empower people to help themselves. The town can't always, we plant so many trees, setbacks are one of our biggest things, and I'd love to do a PowerPoint to tell you about what we do, but that's what we need. We need a story about that, a resident doing the right thing for themselves. So back to the other point, Central Ave, yes. Great job, kudos. The liquid amber tree, the sweet gum, one of the most beautiful trees in town. So kudos to them, but they had a huge lot. So in fairness, and secondarily, I know they spent tens of thousands of dollars because I know the men that worked on those trees, they spared no expense. So not everybody has that luxury. Whoever bought that house is obviously Trump-like rich there. So that's not everybody. They spent an incredible amount of money on that property. Everybody realizes that. So great example, good job for them, but that's not the regular example. So back to the police station. Yes, that's more like it. So I'm glad that that point was made. They actually saved an ailanthus tree. Does anyone know what an ailanthus tree is? That's a tree of heaven. It's an invasive species. So why the hell would they, actually the only tree they saved is invasive species. It shouldn't even be there. So it's just, again, understanding. Good for the builder to prune an ailanthus and keep it on the corner, like in the distribution line network. to me, that's craziness right there. So
It's
again,
almost worse.
it's almost worse. So when I looked at that, I said, oh my God, I can't believe I'm witnessing this stuff today. So that is,
They have to assume that they're doing that out of good intention, but.
they do, but they don't know any better.
All of
They
that
don't know any better.
information.
So
Yeah.
awful example right there.
But
Senseless
that's,
actions.
that comes with, like, when I've been trying to jot down, we don't have to go through them now, maybe one of our meetings can be like off the wall. Or just like little tiny things, right, like profiling 10 people in Needham who have been planting trees and or offering. You know, free consults for builders,
Mhm.
you know, before they take, because sometimes, and it's not to say some of the builders probably have folks on staff, but if it's not an added cost. You know, I know that, or a reduced price, or whatever it may be, or even a list that's on the town website of the best tree, you know, I don't know enough about trees, I need to learn more about that. But even
When
like,
they
you
hire a
know, this
landscape
builder gets a stamp
designer,
of
they.
approval.
use
Yeah,
them
for the
that-
for the town, because they've demonstrated over the last year that they've made a commitment. I don't know what it could be, but I appreciate it because I hadn't thought it, those are just, the point being is when you put out things like, and thoughts like that, it helps spur kind of more creative,
Yeah,
like short-term things, like you said, not necessarily the big
well,
long-term plan.
yeah, but I think all ideas are valuable,
Yeah.
and I guess what I'd like to do is sort of say for our homework. So, first of all, this is gonna be a shorter meeting than normal, don't get used to it. It's gonna be hard work. But tonight is gonna be shorter, but I would like you to spend, you know, the minutes you're given back, brainstorming, come up with some ideas. Also take a look through with a really critical eye at this list that is on the most recent, draft, for this committee. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We need to look at other towns. What other towns are doing, whether that's a bylaw or something else. We need to look at those things. We're gonna need to find ways to understand where we're starting from. What kind of tree canopy do we have currently? What are the best kinds of trees? We have, a lot of trees that were planted at the same time and they're sort of reaching their end of life at the same time. It means those are coming down. We don't necessarily have the ability to replace those trees with the same type of trees and maybe, there are good reasons for that. A lot of our power lines are resulting in really wonky shaped trees that decrease their health and vitality. So what I'm gonna ask is that you take a look at these issues and then the recommended strategies and think about brainstorming some ideas, short-term, long-term, doesn't matter, we need everything. We want to throw the kitchen sink at this problem, but also where you might be willing to lend an extra hand. This is not all going to be possible to get done in these meetings. We are going to have to do a little extra homework on the side. So think about where your interest lies. Think about the time that you have and what you might be willing to contribute, sort of offline.
Relating to identifying what we have now, what our baseline is. I heard the rumor that the town may be funding a global information system mapping of the canopy.
Yeah,
Is
well,
that a
maybe
fact?
we can, Ed, can you take us through a brief, there's a tree survey, an inventory of street trees, and then there was some GIS mapping that might be available. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The Parks and Forestry was given $10,000 to perform a partial inventory. So we have completed that. We have that base layer on our GIS layer. It's not publicly available because I don't have those type of permissions, but we have that available for our staff and our engineering and our building inspector, and our town staff can see all those trees that we inventoried. And if successful at town meeting this year, we'll have more monies put into a fund to continue that inventory until we capture all public shade trees. But we did complete that inventory from Bartlett Tree right around the end of December.
So that'll be available for us the information from that will be available for us to use, right?
Was that from
I'm
a
certainly fine with that.
in
What's that?
town?
Was it the whole town?
No, oh, no, not even close. $10,000 doesn't get you far. So again, I think I asked for 100,000, but we got 10, so now we have more monies hopefully coming, and we'll just keep going until we get it all. But yeah, we did the ladder streets off of Great Plain Ave, left and right, and captured a couple thousand trees, but certainly wasn't the town.
Andy, I got a question. This is going back one step ago, and that is on the house next to Newman School. And when you're preserving a tree, I mean, you want to preserve around the drip line, you want to preserve the root structure. You were mentioning you're putting out a figure as far as tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Now I
Air
understand.
spading, radial trenching, fertilizing, preventatively pruning, structurally pruning. Everything was done on that liquid amber tree. Everything you can imagine. It was the Bentley approach to arboriculture right there.
So they were,
I mean,
they were aerating, they were aerating.
they did everything for that.
Okay.
And they should, because that tree's worth tens of thousands of dollars. I think the point being is like the gentleman said, the restore, you can never replace that tree. So they made a conscious effort to say, this is a treasure in our front yard. This is more expensive than that house that they built because of what that tree represents right there. I'd say it's one of the most beautiful trees in town, although I'm biased because the oak tree on the Newman property I manage, and I think that's a little bit more, it's a little nicer than liquid amber. Similar ages, but I could be biased on it.
Okay, and then what about the GIS mapping?
As far as what?
Can you tell us how that works and what that will yield?
So it's all done. Like I said, we did the
Is that
$10,000.
same thing as the tree inventory?
Yeah.
Oh, it is,
It's in
that is
GIS.
how they're.
So
Okay.
yeah, the GIS is basically taking the information and putting it on a spatial relationship. So actually capturing every street tree and all those ladder streets, sugar maple, 24-inch, good condition, and just going tree by tree by tree, doing a quick inventory.
Do you have an estimate of how much it would cost to do the whole town this way?
I think I mentioned about $100,000 to get, I mean, so there's differing, right now we're at public shade trees. So if we want every tree like at Cricket Field, every tree in the woods or at Sonita, it would probably cost $1 million. So I think you gotta focus what trees you want to inventory and why. So I think, again, it goes back to our goals.
And so how does the GIS differ from this LiDAR, light detection and ranging?
Sure.
That is listed here? That's
That's a great question. So the GIS is basically a street level view of where every tree is in the landscape of the urban landscape. LiDAR is taking a very high level view of the tree canopy in general from a spatial standpoint. And right now our LiDAR is really incredible because we know that, I mean, if you hike around here and you go to a high point and you look at Needham, it's tree canopy everywhere except for the industrialized areas. Everything else has a full canopy. Regardless of the amount of tree removals, the LiDAR is going to speak to, we have an incredible tree canopy. So we're not in a lot of dire straits, but we do know there are areas of town, the heights, the industrialized areas of the Needham Crossing that certainly don't do well on a LiDAR. But overall, our town is very heavily treed and we do very well on a LiDAR. And you'll hear that from Charles River, because I know that I've seen our LiDAR studies. They're amazing, other than the heights.
really the difference between the forest and the trees is what we're saying.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, yes.
If we're gonna talk about preserving tree canopy and setting goals for tree canopy, we're talking about the LiDAR understanding of where we are versus the individual trees.
Yep.
That would take us 20 years
Mhm.
to evaluate where we stand right now, based on that estimate, well, 10 years, but at $1 million, I mean, who knows if we'll ever get there, so.
Well,
It's changing.
maybe I could
So-
clarify. LiDAR is a very high level way. So again, LiDAR can help us say that Rich Hill has 98% tree canopy. 5 years, we don't have to inventory every tree. 5 years later, you look at the LiDAR and it's the same. Or you say, boy, we have a tree pest. 10% of the canopy is dead from the LiDAR. What's going on? Oh, we have Asian longhorn beetle in there. We got to come up with a plan. Or we have Diploidia tip light. It's spreading through the forest and we got a problem. So again, I don't think we have to inventory. I think we should inventory our public shade trees and the trees that we want to inventory. But I don't think every school ground, every park, I don't know if we have to go into that because the LiDAR will take care of that on that very high level. We could say, hey, we kept our LiDAR rating at 98%. We're fine. But again, I think we could spend money any way you look at it, so, but that's just my recommendation. I wouldn't go that far.
Do we have historical LiDAR? Or are we saying this is the
Yeah.
starting point, this is our base? So we can compare
Yeah.
5 years, yeah, but can we go backwards too?
We don't, but the feds provide that free of charge right now to all the partner agencies. I don't know how long those will be available, but yes, there's historical records for LiDAR through the federal government. They're always doing aerial surveys, state DCR, EPA, urban forestry, they're all working together on LiDAR. So yeah, there's definitely historical LiDAR for sure for decades.
I have just a question, just a basic question. How are public shade trees defined? Like what are the parameters?
That's a
behind
great
that?
question. So public shade trees are defined, and the jurisdiction of public shade trees is on a tree warden. Every community in Massachusetts is mandated to have a tree warden. So public shade trees are right-of-way trees. We call public shade trees like berm trees in Needham, which means they're within the sidewalk and the road. But really, the technical term of a public shade tree is within the public way. So we have some streets, South Street, other streets. In fact, we'll be talking about some tree removal on South Street at the board meeting next week. There is meandering public ways. So sometimes, again, public shade trees might just be forest on the edge of a scenic road. So, but in our historical meaning of public shade tree, it's really those alleyway trees, those trees within the street. Great question, though. Once you're on private property, like you go on the web GIS layer of the town Town of Needham website, you can look at every parcel of land, click on the lot, you can see here's the lot, 2.5 acres, 1 acre, and then you can see the boundaries. And after that boundary, you can see where the road layout is. Anything in that road layout is considered a public shade tree under Chapter 87, Section 7 of Mass General Law.
All right, so we could probably just sit here and talk about this all night. And there will be nights when we do that. But we have one very important thing to do before we can get to anything else, which is to decide when we're gonna meet. So a lot of very busy people in this room, so we're gonna have to sort of just shuffle this out. So if you've got your calendars, take them out.
Make a recommendation.
Yes, please.
In my experience, it's best if we try to just set a set schedule, if it's the second, whatever, the third.
Yes.
And I think we were thinking monthly.
Yes.
So if that's the starting point, Oscar, who couldn't join, did let me know Wednesdays he can't do and first Mondays, but so I think we'll just have to try to cobble together.
Yeah, we're just, because,
First Thursdays, how about first Thursdays?
well, we're trying to avoid Thursdays if at all possible, because the town staff needs to have a night off.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah.
they staff. a
It's
ton of
Conservation
committees and-
Commission.
First Thursdays?
No, second and fourth Thursdays.
So, Tuesday? So even-
Tuesdays.
That's.
As long as it's the first Tuesday.
No.
Okay, how about Mondays?
Can't be the first Monday, that's when. the
Not first Monday.
Can be the second Monday.
Can or can't?
Can't.
No, I'm flex, I was just wondering what you had said.
Could be the second.
I can't do the second, but I could do third
Third
Monday.
Monday.
I could do third Monday.
I can't,
This is what it's like at town meetings. It's ridiculous, right?
So
Um,
that'll be Easter Monday, you mean?
Well, we might have
Is
to
it
adjust it
Easter?
given.
Or
I mean, Mondays, you're gonna run
Monday-
into
this is
some
this
Monday
is Monday,
holidays.
March 17th we're talking about.
Oh, I thought you were looking at April, I'm sorry.
Wait, are we in
Oh,
March?
St.
No, I'm
Patrick's.
lying.
We're in March.
looking
We're in
at,
March.
I mean, we
yes,
could
we're
do-
looking at the
okay.
21st, which is that Easter Monday?
That's Easter Monday, yeah.
What doesn't show up on my calendar?
Mhm.
It's weird.
last Monday.
Monday, the 28th?
So.
But is the idea that it would be the third or
No,
fourth
April.
April, I'm sorry, April, okay.
So this is the last Monday in the month,
in general?
in general.
So we're not meeting Wednesdays because Oscar said he can't meet Wednesdays. We're trying to avoid Wednesdays, correct?
Sounds like it, yeah.
You don't want Fridays, 'cause
Remote participation is okay.
Remote participation is okay for now, but the legislature hasn't spoken on the availability of remote meetings into the future, and that's something that they will take up by the end of March. So depending on how that turns out, We'll see.
I have something every Monday, but it's not but it's something that I can. If if that's the only time that works.
Yeah, Mondays I'll have to be maybe 15 minutes late for starting at 6:30, but. Other than that, it's okay.
Okay.
So the last Monday of
pretty
the month, is we looking at the last
So we're
Monday
looking
now?
at the last Monday of the month. We could just we could try to set the meeting time
I
back
mean,
to
it's
15
it's
minutes.
15 minutes, it's okay, I mean.
I can do 6:45.
6:45 would be better.
That would be much better.
6:45.
6:45.
Okay, so 6:45, the last Monday of the month, is that? okay?
So for April, it happens to be the league night for town meeting, they do the warrant night,
right.
but I think if the fourth. Monday works generally for folks, we could book out and just make an exception for April.
That sounds
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Cause
But
once
we
it
probably
gets
wanna
on your
meet before
calendar.
then, I think, cause like, that's a long
It's a lot.
way from now.
Yeah.
So we'll have to change May also.
I was just about to say, we're gonna run into its Memorial Day
Memorial Day.
last month.
Mondays are tough enough.
Yeah, that is true.
But-
But it sounds like, so Tuesdays you can't do, you have to change the time back a little bit?
Tuesday, there's select board meetings and stormwater meetings,
Oh,
so it's just double
you
conflict.
can't do Tuesdays, okay.
What's wrong with the third Mondays of, in this case, if we're.
Minus Easter, yeah,
No, if we do the third Monday in April.
or just in general.
Sounds like, what was wrong with the third
Yeah,
Monday?
the third Monday,
Third Monday is Patriots Day, not the, like, I mean, it's the end of the day.
Right, but I don't know if that for town stuff.
well, okay, but it sounds like. We're gonna have to do Mondays, 'cause that. Did Oscar say what he just can't do Wednesdays at all?
Or first Monday.
Alright, so
Well, the first Monday is.
Or Wednesday.
Okay.
What was wrong with
we
the
could
second,
do
second Monday?
second
See, this
Monday.
is the hardest thing.
Second Monday, what was wrong with,
Just in general.
anyone have a problem with second Monday?
Yeah, I have a different
Alright.
committee.
Okay,
So we
second
could
Monday's
do
definitely-
typically either third or fourth Mondays, and we make an exception on the
Yeah,
months that.
so we're
I'm
gonna
good
have
on
this.
either.
Sounds like that's what we're gonna have to do. So we'll do,
I don't think-
does anyone have a preference between third or fourth Monday?
Should we do
Okay.
third, cause not always,
Let's do
there's
third.
not always a
Monday.
fourth.
Third Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do
Third
third
Monday.
Monday,
Okay.
so that's April 21st.
Right.
And
Third
we can
Mondays.
make it, maybe we can make it at 7 if that makes it.
So that's Patriots.
But that's
Day and
Patriots Day.
Town Hall.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
but I said, except for April, we're gonna do third Mondays, so we just have to find an alternate date.
Okay.
Yes.
That,
Alternate
and that is, I don't think we're going to, but just for. You may wanna do it a little before that or a little bit later, because that's school vacation week. So. I don't
Okay.
currently have, so what about? Second Mondays are off, right? If people
No,
do
first
Monday,
Mondays are off for me.
We just do
Second
Monday the
Mondays are off for
14th for
Second
April.
Mondays are off for
Alright.
Katie.
I'm open compared to you guys, so.
Yeah, I thought I had a bad schedule, but
And what was wrong with Thursdays again? Trying to take.
Thursday is the town staff.
Give a day,
Advising
give a
not
day
to
off.
staff any committees, because
Okay,
otherwise they're out every night.
okay.
And I'm gonna try and respect that, because as many committees as we are on, they are on twice as many.
But now Katie, is any other staff on this committee besides Katie?
Yes,
Oh, right.
Betty, and then Karis and Gabby as needed,
Okay,
so.
So we just need an alternate date for the 21st. It sounds like everyone's generally okay with. third
Generally, I
Mondays.
think the third Thursday is the way we're gonna go.
Third Monday.
Third, yes, sorry. Oh, Lord.
So now we just need, I mean, we could just plan on it, if anyone's gonna be out of town, they can do it from afar, but Tuesday the 22nd. No, we can't do Tuesdays.
Hang on a second, Tuesday the 22nd. I'm okay with Josh. Do you have stormwater
Nothing is scheduled right now for that day,
on April 22nd?
right, on April
Travel,
22nd.
Vacation.
I don't know, we have 15th and the 29th. Or at least. That's what I have on my calendar, which doesn't. Cause we. I move it to off schedule because of the election.
We move the 9th to the 15th.
We also have one on the 22nd. Thank you.
I wasn't involved in that information. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm adding that now. Okay, I can't meet on the 22nd because I have select board. Let's do. Wait, so that week is the school vacation week, we're saying anyway, so what about? The 16th, which is a Wednesday. I know that that means Oscar can't make it, but I don't see that we have that many choices. So how about April 16th? At 7,
So I'm wondering,
okay? Is everyone okay with starting the meeting at 7 or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, so generally speaking, our meetings will be on the third Monday, starting at 7. And each meeting, we'll just have to look ahead and see if we have to plan an alternate. Excellent.
I can build out.
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe
exhausted.
6 or 9 months and just see if there's any Monday holidays, and so that we can just have a great, yeah, great.
But were we thinking about doing a meeting before April 26th?
April 16th,
Oh, so maybe not, because it's.
because,
one
Yeah,
week
it's about a
earlier.
month.
well,
I mean,
when is well, at our next meeting, we were talking about getting the Charles River watershed. However, we could make that our third meeting because their report isn't done anyway, right? And we could have another meeting if people feel like it's needed before. But it sounds like there's a lot of very busy schedules here.
were they
so-
planning to be at our next meeting?
We didn't have a date, so they know that I'm requesting a presentation, they're willing to do it, it was just subject to the date working out.
Well, what was the report that wasn't finished? You mentioned something, some report may not be finished.
They're gathering data on the whole watershed area.
They have baseline data to share with us, but they're doing a larger project and
It'd just be nice to have the larger data set.
Yeah.
I tell you what, since we have just started, why don't we not make another meeting in between? It seems like incredibly busy. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on for people. Let's think over the sort of homework. What are we gonna volunteer to participate in? What are the strategies that we want to think about? In the meantime, we can talk about, maybe work with you guys to get some names together to put together a developer group that we could consult with. And in the meantime, if anyone has their suggestions, other avenues that they'd like to explore, you can feel free to reach out. You can send it to me and then I'll share with Katie and so on. Okay.
Two other scheduling things. Are we still aiming in the charge it says June 15th for a report to the select board?
I mean, my personal feeling would be, we'll aim for it, sure, but let's make sure that we have something worth reporting. So I'm not sure that, we're gonna make that. It took us a little longer to get the committee formed and started, so we may let that date slip a little bit.
It's a target, not a deadline.
Yes.
Well, it's also just where we are in the point in time. It's not, here's our conclusion, it's where we are.
Well,
And if I could add, part of the discussion with that date was to inform our budget process. And so so folks have context, departments have to submit their budget requests usually in September. Kind of internally, we start our staff level process. And so if they need to be costing things out and thinking through a budget submission so that it's thoughtful and ready to go to the town manager, they're usually doing that work over the summer. So I think if we keep in mind, if there's any items that we think are cost related in terms of the town budget, it would be good to identify those and throw it in the mix, because otherwise you're a whole year out. So I think that would be helpful from my perspective, if it's a money item.
yeah, excellent point.
And the other thing, do you guys have a target date for the hearing session, public hearing session?
I'll tell you, the truth for me is that I think the best time to do that is probably in September. Because at this point, we don't have a meeting for a while. We also have a town election. We also have town meeting. And then it's all of a sudden it's the summer. So I think, a lot of our meetings over the next few weeks or months rather are gonna be education based and, you know, coming up with some brainstorming and some working groups that will look at a lot of the baseline information that we would want to be sharing at some of these meetings. I understand that we want to be hearing from people and listening, but I do think that giving some baseline understanding is part of that. So my inclination would be to wait until September when everyone's back, but it's not my decision to make. So what do you all think?
I guess I would suggest maybe like end of May or June before the summer break. So that it's after, you know, the election and town meeting, but before people go away for the summer. And that part of it, we can, you know, hear people's input and integrate that over our meetings during the summer.
Mhm. Okay, well, let's see. One of the things that Katie will be doing in between is sort of building out our schedule.
Yeah.
And so we'll look at how that could be worked in. And how it will fit. Gotcha.
So did I hear you right, that you would invite each of us to send you a little description of some of the ideas that we have about this and what we might be willing to volunteer to do in terms of outside of the committee work,
Yeah,
Or
so I think,
data gathering?
I'm revising that
Okay,
as I hear it said out loud. Actually, what I'd like to do is maybe we can put together a little form to send out, because then their answers come back in a grid and we can. So let me send you something and then you can fill it out and send it
Sounds
back,
good.
but
Yeah.
that'll make it simpler on the.
I was gonna say that I've been thinking about this from a process perspective. And certainly if we can all go home and brainstorm, but brainstorming really yields the best results when you've got.
When you do it together, absolutely.
And you're
Well, so I'm
facilitating
thinking,
it
I'm
and.
thinking we bring our ideas and we discuss them at our next meeting. I mean, that's not to be meant to be an isolated thing, absolutely. But if we put them all together and then in our next packet is like, here's all these ideas, let's talk about them and sort of weed through them.
is there a group software where we could
We can't,
actually, we can't do
can't do
that?
that because of the open meeting law.
But this doesn't count as an open meeting?
No, it does.
Oh, it does, I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, so, good point. Thank you for sort of inadvertently bringing that up. We are all subject to the open meeting law. That means that, we need to be discussing these ideas here in our open meeting and not on email, by text, in person with more than, half of this committee. So if you bump into someone over coffee and it's just two of you and you're discussing the meeting, that's fine. You can talk about what was expressed, but we need to be careful to vet these ideas in public, talk about them here. So.
But for instance, Erica and I could have a little Erica party and
You
do
could
like
have a little
get
Erica
together for
party. Yeah,
brainstorming.
you could do that. You could do that.
And
And then it's just that we don't want to reply all to emails, even, you know, that we don't think that they're substantive. We want to make sure that what we're doing and discussing is fully open and visible to the public so that they can understand where this committee stands at all times. We don't want to be like forming little side opinions, especially in consensus, and then bringing them here to this group. We want all of that conversation really to happen here. So when I send you this form and you brainstorm and bring ideas back, we're going to consolidate them and put them in the packet, which will be available to you publicly prior to the next meeting. And then we will come here and we will discuss all these ideas and more, whatever kind of bubbles up. But it is an important thing, especially for you guys who maybe haven't been subject to the open meeting law in the past. It can be a little excuse me, cumbersome, but it is worthwhile because this is how the public can be assured that they're coming along with us on the ride.
And pretty much the only thing you can fly all is if we're trying to find a meeting date.
Yeah,
That's pretty much it.
but even there, usually we coordinate that through our staff because it's too trying to like maybe make a mistake, so it's just not worth it.
It's a great segue to administrative items if you want me to dive into it. It's on my list, yeah. So all the wonky administrative stuff. So open meeting law, I'll send you all, we have some good slide decks from previous presentations that have been done and orientations and some guidance. It can be very wonky, but I think Heidi covered the most important thing. Reply all and email is like the biggest kind of stumbling block, I think, for a lot of new committee members. So if you ever have a resource that you want to share with the whole committee, send it to me and I can share it with everyone. I'm not subject kind of to I'm not a member of your body. And so I can share those resources freely. The other reality of being a town committee member is that you're subject to public records law, which means even on your personal email or text messages, anything that you're communicating about the work that you do wearing this hat is subject to public record. It doesn't mean that you need to proactively share it, but if we are asked for it, you would have to turn it over. It's very rare, but we do get requests. So I think it's just good to be aware of, you know, be mindful.
So what do you suggest in order to do that? To label certain emails or to
Yeah,
just have a keyword or
I mean,
something that you can search?
a
or-
couple of strategies. Some people create separate emails for their committee work. I don't know that this committee will warrant that. Other people, you could just create a folder and any correspondence you have related to this committee, you could just file it into a folder.
Again, this is only stuff that's related to this committee. The rest of your
Yeah.
life is yours.
Yeah.
But-
So, yes, it's just,
For now.
you know, in this role, wearing this hat, your communication.
And since you're not replying all to anything and you're not really, I mean, any communication on this committee will be to Kate or to me, probably. And so this should not be an issue.
Yeah, it's rare, but
It's really rare.
but you are subject to it, so I just want everyone to know. And if I'm ever copied on an email, it's saved on our hard drives and you don't have to worry about it, because if I ever get asked for it, I can go get it, because I'm a town employee, but. So public records, I'll send you some information on that. Thank you all for getting sworn in, so appreciate it, the clerk appreciates it as well. I set up on the town website, you can access old agendas, minutes, board packets, so those will always get posted. So you can see them, but anyone in the public can. And I also created a notify me. So again, if you're on the town website, there's a box that says notify me. You can sign up for a whole bunch of listservs based on your interest areas and topical ones. So I created one for trees, just assuming that people will want to follow along. We'll try to get the word out through our town media channels and to have members of the public sign up for that. But just if you're talking with folks and somebody's interested, you just direct them to the website and say, oh, sign up for the notify me. And then they can get alerted when we're gonna have a meeting or the hearing or.
And you may want to just sign yourself up as well, because people will stop you, you know, in the street to talk about trees if they know you're on this thing. And it's nice to know what they've received if they've signed up, just.
That's my only other thing was I'm gonna not print packets from this point forward unless you want them. So you just let me know and I'll get you packed, but otherwise I'm gonna save the tree.
Good.
It is ironic when you think
I
about it, isn't
know,
it?
I know.
Any questions or?
I had a request. I was thinking about the idea of ideating or in process, and I wonder if we could maybe accelerate the learning curve a little bit, and you know, if Lexington or Wellesley were programs that there's some parallels, some lessons learned that would be worth, you know, us absorbing as quickly as possible. I wonder if we can hear from those towns in some way, shape or form sooner rather than later, so that we can use that as a springboard and we can, again, not get mired down in something that someone else has already figured out or said.
With a large
That's a
house,
great idea, but can we just fill you in a little bit on what is likely to happen? if you
yeah, the
propose
large
that?
house review committee is bringing in Wellesley April 24th, I think. No, March 24th. March 24th. About their bylaw for large house, how they do that. And so I think it makes perfect sense to bring another town, Lexington, Wellesley, whatever town they need to talk about.
Maybe we
that.
can.
I was also gonna volunteer to just call up somebody on one of the, I've been looking at Brookline's work on they have very good report on your website. So I would volunteer to just go to them, to, if there's a town we all agree would be good.
So particularly, I think that they have a report that they've done, that sounds really complete. I guess the only thing I'm thinking is that if we're gonna assess other towns, we probably wanna have like a comprehensive set of questions that we wanna
Mhm.
ask, and we need to come up with that unless we have that. Which, I mean, I don't, so, but towns that have a report, certainly that seems pretty accessible and presumably comprehensive.
Yeah. Right, there's also on the web a report on what a successful tree committee. The steps for a successful tree committee.
Oh, where's that?
I will send it, I will send it.
And then post it on the website.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you, that sounds very useful.
Towns, tree preservation committee report or whatever be part of the public. So wouldn't you be able to find that
You
Theoretically,
probably would, yeah.
on other
So
towns'
if you feel
websites?
inclined to crawl through town websites, I mean, go to town, don't let me stop you. And anything that you find that you think would be of use, send to Katie, because she'll, assemble it for us so that we can all benefit from it. So in that way, maybe we all do a whole heck of a lot of reading before our next.
Yeah, I think we'll get more out of
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else? Fantastic. Well, we need to have a motion to adjourn if we are ready to do so. So if anyone has such a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
My second.
Excellent. All in favor?
I-
Aye. All right, super. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Eddie.
Good night.
Bye, Eddie.
Bye.